Once you log on to the Wi-Fi and you load up the URL 192.168.4.1, you'll be able to see this web server drop-down menu. This is for the Jbox settings and controls. This is usually the version number of the code. Major updates, this will change. When it's minor updates, there's hardly any change here involved. Now, it's important to note that you will only have 45 seconds to access this menu after you start the Jbox. Okay, so 45 seconds. Remember that. 45 seconds. You'll get another 20 seconds on the clock for the Jbox menu settings changes every single time you change a setting in the Jbox. Okay, so it'll add a little bit more time to make sure that if you're not completed. The reason why I have this done is because there's the back end ESP now protocol that runs, and I can't let the device just run infinitely in the Wi-Fi mode because it wants to be able to communicate typically with the Swaptics host or a BRX host mechanism to manage the gameplay. And so a lot of game functionality, the Jbox talks to the host depending on the game mode. And so that's why I have a time limit in there. But yeah, so 45 seconds to access the menu. Whenever you do change any settings, you will see the light indicator, whether it's an LED RGB single LED unit or the RGB ring, depending on what type of system or type of Jbox you have. It'll flash for you to indicate that the change was made. And the display, if there's a display installed, will indicate the new game mode. So I'm going to go through the information here. Okay. The base scoring is whenever you set a device into a domination or tags received counter type mode, anything that's a gameplay type setting, it will manage the score, and you'll be able to view the score here if it's a standalone gameplay. And so in those modes, it doesn't automatically necessarily turn into an ESP now protocol to communicate with taggers and the host, but it will be an individual base, and the OLED display will also display the score if it's like a single domination type game mode, where the specific Jbox is serving only as a base. It will always display the updated score on the screen, as well as on the web server if you want to be able to track it. So that's what this is to indicate the points. Now let's go on down. I'm going to skip the settings here for these and go into debug updates, because this is important to know whenever you're first getting started with the Jbox and new Jboxes. You want to set the Jbox ID number to be singular, right? So you don't. So normally I create the Jboxes with the same Jbox ID. When you do change it, it will change the Wi-Fi SSID to log in, so you know which Jbox you're changing the settings to. So if you write on the box or put a sticker on it or a label maker, etc., to identify the Jboxes, which is highly recommended, you'll be able to track and keep an idea of which Jbox you're making changes for whenever you're doing the menu settings and changes. So this is good, and it also helps whenever you're doing more complicated games like Targets Plus or a hosted version of King of the Hill for Swaptics or other modes. And so it's unique in making sure you can track and keep them individual so they're properly assigned in those game modes. So make sure, right, takeaway is have each Jbox you own or have it in play have a different ID. Just do that. There's plenty of IDs. I don't think anybody's ever going to use more than 20. And so I think there's 21 different options to set them to. Okay, that's that. Motion activation. So the code is not perfect on this. This is also kind of more beta. I do have a space on the Jbox disk and the Jbox normal board, the full-size board, for a motion activation device to be installed to be able to trigger the effect if somebody walks by it, right? So if it's like an explosive mode where it blows things up, you can set it as a claymore type thing, or you can set it as a respawn station. It'll wait for the motion activation to indicate it to trigger that activity. Okay. Again, it's kind of beta still. I don't have a great motion detector that I found to make it work. I have had it functional with a couple different modules, but have not been convinced that it's very reliable depending on lighting settings. The lighting settings make it difficult for me to make this actually fully integrated still. Installed RGB component. Now, if you're using a Jbox Mini, you don't need to worry about this. You can set these if you want to. It doesn't really matter. It won't function unless it's plugged in. But this is for a J Cube. Normally, if you've purchased one of these units from me, I already have it set to the correct settings. You don't need to bother with it. But this is if you had a Jbox or a Cube and you plugged in different type of components for it to work. The strip is for like an OLED strip, usually used for the Jbox, the main board, or for the disc, the round disc size Jbox. That's what you would want to use that for, and you'd plug in a strip to run around and put on the device that you want to. And then the ring is basically for the cube. Set LoRa functions. Okay, now LoRa is still beta. It's not 100% functional. I've been struggling with this still, and I'm going to get it working soon. It will be coming with an update once I get it finalized and detailed out to play it. The idea for LoRa functionality is to be able to expand your game of play, so it's not just based upon ESP Now range, but on LoRa as well for primary game start and stop functions, and for like the Swaptics or other laser tag systems to use what is it? The King of the Hill game mode, right? So the hosted King of the Hill game mode to make sure all the Jboxes that are in far away are able to receive the reset commands and reassignment commands for what type of base they're supposed to be. That's what that is. So it's really, I wouldn't enable it until I have it 100% and give you the update for that. It's fully tested, so it's still beta thing. So under the debug and updates, really the only thing you need to make sure is the Jbox ID number is assigned. And if you built your own Jbox, make sure if you're using a ring or strip that you select one of those. Otherwise, the startup won't make it work. So you got to make sure those are enabled and selected. All right. That's that for the walkthrough, for the introductory, for the main stuff. Then we're going to get into the Jbox settings on the next video.